big fact check.
Look.
I believed you. Yeah, cool. So the Doctrine of Discovery, we're talking around the 1400s. Now this is actually a series of papal bulls, edicts, things written, delivered on high from the Pope. Okay, from the Pope, a series of declarations. Essentially, the Spanish, who were one of the kind of superpowers at the time, wanted to go around exploring the globe and see who else was out there. Actually, no, to see what else was out there that they could conquer. And so their agenda was to conquer the world in Jesus' name. And so the Pope said, if you get there and there are people there and they don't bow the knee to Jesus, you may take them, quote unquote, into perpetual slavery. Yes.
Oh, yes.
So the Pope said that. And so the notion of white supremacy, of some people being better than others, is tied to something called the Great Chain of Being. You can Google that, Great Chain of Being, which basically puts certain people quite high and then indigenous people down the bottom, just before animals, who are just before flora and fauna. True story. So that's where a lot of the roots of colonisation come from, and a lot of issues around people thinking that it's okay to go and take over when there are people already there. So a lot of it comes from that, the Doctrine of Discovery. And there's a new book out by Susan Healy that talks about reconciliation, has some good chapters in her book about Doctrine of Discovery. So that's one. The Declaration of Independence. So we'll come to listing now. Declaration of Independence. What do you want to say about that?
Before the Treaty of Waitangi.
Yes.
We're going to go, should I just say the number? 1555.
Wow. And whose declaration about whose independence? Who's
Oh wait, is this the Amir?
No, it's
No.
You two. There are two correct answers.
Mine's
Yeah. 18.
85.
That was my second.
Okay, we hit it in the right
That's right.
century, guys.
Declaration of Independence, also known in Te Reo Māori as He Whakaputanga, etc. Long name. Declaration of Independence. So yes, there's the American one, but actually we have our own one, and this is really the founding document of Aotearoa pre-treaty. If there wasn't that, there couldn't have been a treaty. And in Waitangi, they refer to it as the parent, or the first, the mother, the parent, and Te Tiriti is the child born of that. So yeah, good date to know, 1835, October 28th. Okay, and you had that, right?
Yes.
Did you give yourself another big fat tick?
Yeah, we do.
Alright. Tick. Cool. Now, this is quite hard.
Sean's got us.
1840.
Yes. What do you know about Te Tiriti or Waitangi?
Sign from my tongue.
Yeah, and where else?
Where else?
Yeah.
I'm not
There
sure.
was where else? Yeah. So did you know there were signings outside of Waitangi? Cool, we're going to get there. So you still get the
Oh
points.
yeah,
anyway,
that's
I'm
right.
not
They
taking it back.
transferred into
So,
different
cool.
provinces.
Who else had 1840?
Surprise.
There's that one.
Knowledge.
Got that one.
Yeah. So 1845, you guys had that too?
Yes.
And I'm not meaning to be rude when I do this. Te Tiriti or Waitangi. Cool. Tick, tick, tick. How are we going scoreboard-wise here?
Well, we're all winners on the inside.
Oh,
It's
amen.
fine.
And on the outside?
Right, Sarah.
I'm on the outside. We think we've paired these. We should have split these guys out. That's what we're saying.
We're the minorities.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, the girl.
So here we go. This one here, number 4, the arrival of CMS missionaries. Extra points if you know what CMS stands for without looking.
Majesty's Service. I don't know what the C is.
I'm glad that you guessed. You get a half a point for that. No, but that's okay.
Okay.
Missionaries. Anyone got the date of the
China
first?
Missionary Society.
Oh. No, but you got the second 2 bits right. You got the second 2 bits
Christian.
Christmas
Right. It's
Day.
the other C word. It's very
Christmas
Christian.
Day,
Catholic.
Christmas.
Oh.
few days before.
Church.
And in particular, what type of church? Anglican, really. Okay, so CMS is still going today, and it's driven by the Anglicans. So, what year did the Anglicans arrive?
Christmas Day.
Christmas Day, that is correct. And what year?
Before 1840.
Before 1840, before 1835?
Yes.
Take a guess how many years before 1835? 2. There's a band named after it.
40.
1814.
1814. I always get those two mixed up.
And do is Sarah Louis Rippenbein.
Oh, who?
Willow Mackie. And
Oh,
I met her.
really?
She also wrote many other things, but that's the most
Well known,
famous
famous
one.
Yeah, awesome. Extra points for that. Cool. So the Church Missionary Society. This is pre-established churches with, you know, those documents that you sign to become a church. Constitutions. This pre-constitution, pre-institutional church. This is like missionary stage. 1814. And the name of the first missionary to come over here from CMS was Samuel Marsden. Good holding back. I know you had that.
I saw that one.
Yeah. So Samuel Marsden, at the invitation of, extra points for this one, Steve? Ruata. Yeah, into Oihi, up north, Rangihawa. So that's very interesting. That whole story alone, we could do like 16 weeks.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so, tick. Interestingly, 1814, Samuel Marsden did come here, but he didn't hang out here for a long time. He actually went back to Parramatta, where there's another Rangihawa over there actually. And where I come from, the story about where the first fry bread in New Zealand came from, yes, is that up north, Samuel Marsden, because he was into agricultural, you know, kind of stuff and growing things, and yeah, he had all that going on, and that's part of the reason Ruatara was like, what is the meaning of this? Oh, we have kumara and mahi potatoes and all that, and all these other things, but we don't have this weird stuff growing here. Samuel Marsden gives them wheat plants them. This is Keith Newman's story as well. They grow, and Ruatara's people are like, oh yeah, cool, must be ready now. And he said, round about now. Pull it out the ground, look at the roots. Useless plant, threw it out. So that's a problem because the wheat, the bit you're looking for is where? So sometimes you're looking in the wrong place. The gold is there, you're just looking in the wrong place. So Samuel Marsden's like, what the heck? Sends them some more stuff. Grow it, okay, cool, we're at the right end of the plant now. Yay, it's ready. Oh, flip, how do you like mash this stuff up and turn it into flour and then whatever you guys make? You need a mill, sent for a mill, took another month for this thing to arrive. Finally mash it all up and mill it all up and make a little flour, get the frying pan on the fire here and cook up the first fry bread in Ngāpuhi. That's right, so all the Ngāpuhi in your house, put your hand up. And that's right, you can thank us for fry bread. So, then we come down to here, the waka start arriving. Where do you think? This team?
Did we put it down? We put it in 1500. No. We said 1500.
Yeah. Kapai? Any other guesses?
1350.
1350? That's very specific, isn't it?
Go with him.
Yeah. 259 and then after January the 4th. No.
Yeah, we said 16.
Okay, 1350 was the closest. It's actually probably more likely to be around here.
Oh.
Why? No one really knows the date because this is a Gregorian style of capturing dates and things like that. The only way that people have worked out 1350, for example, is by calculating, well, I think one generation is probably 25 years. If you times that by the fact that the whakapapa story they gave is, say, 15 generations back, we end up at X years. So if you take that off what today's date is, you end up at 1350. So many of us have been told that, but there's no way of really verifying that apart from each own story. And they're all different because they all arrived at different times.
Mm.
So they didn't sync their watches and all arrive at the same time. I do repeat myself, but that's only because there's a lot of information. Yeah. So is that cool?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Crusades.
2000.
1100 to 1200.
Good. Yes.
I've been there.
Yeah, it's Christine.
Really?
Acre in Israel.
So very interesting. Very interesting
So,
story. I learned a little bit more just in my studies at Otago, and I didn't realise, but I was like, no wonder they don't want the Crusaders to be called the Crusaders, because I learned a little bit, but not enough to understand the depth of it.
That's why there was a lot of controversy.
It's a pretty embarrassing part of our history, isn't it, really? The Crusades, out to conquer the world, in Jesus' name. Yeah. So this is happening around the same time as Waka arriving, right? So this is global history, pretty cool.
yeah.
Then this, Māori Renaissance. What?
Steve, the
No. We had in the 1960s.
1960s, cool. Till about when?
Ongoing.
Yeah, it is. Good answer. All the extra points for you. It is so ongoing. This here, Renaissance, is the idea that in around about the 60s there was a growing courage, there was growing momentum, there were just groups of people who were like, you know, this is enough now, like, this is enough, we've got to start coming back to the things that are important, our whenua, our reo, our tikanga, our people, like this is too important just to let it slide. People started resisting assimilationist practices of just, you know, and Salvation Army was guilty of some of those too. I remember reading in one document in the 80s, to our shame, it's on public record, that in a meeting that was talking about how we should respond to Te Tiriti o Waitangi, some people in the Salvation Army at the highest level of leadership said, do we really need to? Because, you know, eventually they're all just going to marry our people and then it will be a non-issue. Shivers. So those sort of attitudes were very strong and understandable, I suppose, but Māori started to push back. Too much had been lost, and you have people like Mai Tupuna Whina Kupa saying, not one more acre. Let's have that conversation. Let's have a march to Parliament. What year was that? 1975. Whina Kupa. Yeah, 1975, you have Bastion Point protests. Man, so many cool things happen. Woo. So this is all around here, 1960s on, the Māori Renaissance, and it is ongoing. Number 8, the period of enlightenment. I heard you before saying you did a BA.
I just did art history in high
Or art
school.
history.
I can't tell you. I was a terrible student. I'm going to say 1300 or 1500, final answer.
13 or 15.
Yeah.
Your
Give me a wide
I
scope.
love that. Very enlightening. Anyone over here want to like
Come on,
push that further towards either 13 or 15? Or 17? Okay. Alan?
We had 17, but we're not confident.
No. Steve's avoiding my eye contact. So let's come to this slide.
Which number was that?
Enlightenment.
8.
14.
1400. It's
Oh,
very
in
early.
between.
In between, yeah, very much in between. So really, it's kind of this period here, and depending on whose version you listen to, maybe even into the 1800s a bit, but definitely here. Descartes says, I think, therefore, I am. And there's this whole shift in how people saw the world. Not, God created me, therefore I am, but I think, therefore I am. He really had this kind of crisis, Descartes, Rene Descartes, and he was like, oh, how can we be sure that anything's real, that what we've been told is real? God had been bitten, you know, by life, and he was just so, how can we know that anything's real? We need to empty out the whole barrel of things we've learned and put them back in one at a time. He decided that, you know, maybe the world is not a cruel joke, and maybe God is real, so put that apple in, sure. But how do I know that I'm real? It's because I'm having this conversation with myself right now. So because I'm thinking, I must exist. I think, therefore I am. And so this was really one of the moments in history where the Western world started to move away from the spiritual and start relying on logic, thinking, reasoning, rationale, all of that kind of rational thinking, and less reliant on the spiritual. So the period of enlightenment is moving eventually towards science and kind of like being able to answer the questions of the universe without God being the answer or the cause. And so you get Isaac Newton and all of these things happen, which are really important. But guess who didn't go through the Western period of enlightenment? Here. Okay, trying to find an answer now that I've crossed Māori off the board.
Is it the Renaissance
Who
period?
didn't go through the
Is
period
it
of
the
enlightenment?
missionaries?
Well, they did actually. But who was here in Aotearoa before the missionaries got here? That was here in this country.
Maori.
Who? So what's another way of describing Māori? What are the other names of the nations? Tangata Whenua. Yeah. Different iwi around the country, right? Did not go through the period of enlightenment, did not lose their spiritual connection, did not go through a need to rationalize everything, remained connected to the environment and relationship with your understanding of who the creator was. So that's really a powerful, positive thing, that in this country, everybody didn't actually go through the period of enlightenment and doesn't need to have an individual right to whatever. So all the individual rights movements and all that sort of stuff, the need to own a plot of land, all of this happened somewhere else, it didn't happen here. But the ideas were imported here from around about this time. And the whalers and the sealers and all that kind of jazz. There was what's his name? The theory of evolution came from, what's his name? Darwin. He described Russell or Kororareka as the hellhole of the Pacific. Friendly guy. So, you know, what was happening over here was a whole lot of stuff going on, and this is pretty much pre-missionaries. It's whalers and sealers and all that sort of jazz. And so they've come with very different ways of engaging in the world. Māori still have the sense of collective responsibility to, you know, you look after your own people and kind of keep a lid on things. And here's these crazy guys over in Russell doing all sorts of stuff. So interesting, eh? The Enlightenment, who it did and didn't impact. And where the hope sits today is with a lot of people who never went through, were never stripped away of their, they never had to privatise their faith. It was always and will always be public. The Reformation, Martin Luther, yes, very good. Did you just know that?
Yes.
Yeah. How do you know that, Sean?
Yeah,
Hey?
yeah, thanks.
You hear things. Oh, I never heard those things when I was your age. Yeah, around about the 1500s, Martin Luther gets out his hammer and nails in 95 theses and says to the Catholic Church, "What are you on about?" And then starts to basically lead a protest, which happened all over the place. And so, as a result, the church fragmented. Up until that point, really, it had been one unified Kotahitanga church. The problem was, this is the kind of church it was. The kind of church that would allow for the doctrine of discovery and conquer the world, and I'm the closest thing to God. And is anyone in here Catholic, by the way? Should have checked that first. I mean, technically I'm baptised Catholic, but I'm just saying.
Was that like the Roman Catholic Church?
Yeah. So that's the kind of church that the Protestant Reformation was kind of pushing back against, and eventually the church split. And so you have the Catholic Church, capital C, which considers himself a Catholic, universal, all-encompassing, one true church. And anyone who is not part of that is just kidding themselves, really, because they're a little bit not the true church. So when we left the Catholic Church, you know, it was a bit awkward. Lots of beautiful people in the Catholic Church, though. But yeah, so the Reformation meant this Protestant church protesting against that kind of whakaaro, but still out of the Protestant church came the Anglicans, the CMS Missionary Society, Reformation. New Zealand Wars, when did that happen?
After the treaty was signed.
Yes, it was about 5 years afterwards. So probably 1845 into the 1870s. The New Zealand Wars, they were referred rightly, as you said, as the Māori Wars, as if Māori were the problem. See, language is so important, eh? But actually the New Zealand Wars are now part of the curriculum at schools. And in each area, it's really important to learn the story about what they meant for you here and for the people that you work with. So, Bible Society.
1846.
Yeah, the year after the New Zealand War started, the Bible Society forms. You want to say anything about that?
No, only that we celebrated 175th anniversary last year, right throughout the country. That was good. And there's we've actually done some interviews with some folk, and Hannah mentioned about Samuel Marsden up at Ohihi. And if you go on our website, there's a guy up there by the name of Te Hurihanga who does a beautiful story that tells about the coming of the missionaries, about coming of the gospel. Hey, just have a listen to it, guys. It's really beautiful. We've done some interviewing with some of the folk around Tāwori story down in Waikato, but or Ngāti Hau, so yeah. But organisation that's here basically translates, publishes, and helps distribute the Bible. And us here in New Zealand, our kaupapa, if you like, our mission is to help folk engage with the Bible and get access to the Bible. So yeah.
Totes. And that's actually the reason I met Steve in the first place, because he rang, and I don't know how you found my number, but I was the person to talk to about the children's Bibles in Te Reo Māori. And I was like, yes, we'll have lots of them. Come over, photo opportunity, let's stay in touch. And next month I'll be at my first meeting as a member of the board.
Yeah, beautiful.
Pretty exciting.
That's
so cool. Yeah. So, William Wilberforce, last one. William Wilberforce, when was he up to the abolition of slavery stuff? 1800s, yes. Yeah? Cool. So he passed away in 1833-ish. William Wilberforce, he passed away then, and just as he came to the end of his life, was when things were finally passed. Now, stand up. Yeah, two.